Hey there, friends and running fans. This is Amby Burfoot welcoming you to the latest episode of the podcast, Running, State of the Sport.
And this is George Hirsch, your co-host at Running, State of the Sport. In every episode, we talk to the smartest, most informed, most influential, and sometimes fastest runners on the planet.
This week, we have an amazing and even historic conversation with Billy Mills, who won the Olympic 10,000-meter gold medal in Tokyo in 1964. That was 60 years ago this year, of course, and Billy is still the only American to have won a gold medal in the 10,000 meters.
Many fans and our listeners don't know that Billy also ran the Olympic marathon in Tokyo. In fact, he qualified for the marathon team before qualifying in the 10,000 meters.
In our conversation, Billy talks about growing up as an orphan on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation, attending Kansas University, which had a history of famous milers like Glenn Cunningham, Wes Santee, and Archie San Romani. This was even before the Jim Ryan era. And then he joined the U.S. Marines after college. He also discusses what gave him the confidence to challenge Ron Clarke in that famous Tokyo 10,000-meter race, how he launched his astonishing kick, and what it was like to run the Olympic marathon a week later. But before we get on with Billy, George and I want to review the biggest recent running news. George, what grabbed your attention in the last week or so?
Yeah, Amby, it was the Bowerman Mile at the Prefontaine Classic. It was billed as the featured race of the entire meet. They had a totally loaded field, and boy, I thought it lived up to all the expectations. It was just an incredible race. We had the world champions, Josh Kerr, Jake Whiteman, Jakob Ingebrigtsen, the Olympic champion, Yared Nuguse, who's the American who's just been knocking at the door of the top tier of the milers in the world, and just I could go on and on. The race was loaded. It was an Olympic final for sure. And Josh Kerr ran a very bold race. I would have thought of it as I was watching, a risky strategy. He jumped to the lead with 600 meters to go. That's a long stretch drive with a cast of characters behind him like we just talked about. Then he held it. Ingebrigtsen pushed him and ran a terrific race himself for second. Nuguse third. It only whets your appetite for Paris, the 1,500-meter final. As far as I'm concerned, Amby, that doesn't mean that Kerr, Ingebrigtsen, and Nuguse is the same order of finish. Things can change. These guys came to the pre-meet in different levels of fitness and training. Ingebrigtsen had been coming off a long injury and was coming back, and in many ways, I think he could draw an awful lot from his terrific second-place performance. I didn't hear a lot of their normal trash talking. As we know, Ingebrigtsen has said that he could beat Josh Kerr blindfolded, and we still don't know if that's true since he definitely ran not blindfolded. So it was a great one, Amby. And how about you?
On to Paris for a rerun for sure. Well, I totally agree with you. I was struck and quite surprised by Kerr's early move, 600 meters to go to the front. And I'll tell you someone who didn't run that way but ran great at Prefontaine, and that was England's Keely Hodgkinson, who gave an absolute masterclass in her come-from-behind victory in the 800 meters in a very fast 1:55.78. But it was Beatrice Gibet in the 10,000 who set the world record at the Prefontaine meet with her 28:54.4. She's the first woman to go under 29 minutes in the 10,000 now. In the last year, she's also won the World 5K Road Championships, the World Cross Country Championships, and now she's got a world record at 10,000 meters. I think she's going to go for a 5,000, 10,000 meter double in Paris, and that'll be something also to look forward to.
I should say. Well, that's the biggest running news as we've seen it here at Running State of the Sport.
Just before we jump in with Billy, I want to note a couple of things. First, we didn't have a great connection with him, so you'll hear him chatting with his wife, Patricia, nearby him for clarification at a couple of moments. And also, as a teaser, we're going to give you a 1964 radio report straight from the Tokyo Olympic Stadium as that 10,000 meter race was coming to its conclusion. So hold on. Here it comes.
The time for 9,000 meters, 25 minutes, 45 and 8/10 seconds. They're going to break the Olympic record if they continue on this pace. It's a slow track, although it's a wonderful day for running. It's cool here in National Stadium. The crowd is roaring. 80,000 people are almost out of their seats watching these runners. Clarke is back in the lead. Clarke of Australia, followed by Gamoudi of Tunisia. Mills of the USA is in third position. Mills is staying, and now Mills once again is making his move. Clarke refuses to let Mills go around him. They're battling for the championship of the world. They're battling shoulder to shoulder. They're knocking men off the track. They had to move a man. Clarke moves out in front. And now here comes Gamoudi of Tunisia. He takes the lead, followed by Clarke of Australia. You can't believe it. They've run almost 10,000 meters, and they are literally shoulder to shoulder. Gamoudi of Tunisia is moving now. He's making his move. Clarke is trying to stay with him. Gamoudi is sprinting. He's coming off the curve. They're about to finish the race. There's only 100 meters left. Gamoudi is out in front. No, Clarke is taking him. No, Gamoudi is staving off the challenge. Clarke is sprinting. Gamoudi is out in front by you. Here comes Mills of the USA. Mills of the USA. He won. He won.
Now let's turn to Billy Mills, this week's guest on the Running State of the Sport podcast. Billy is best known for his stunning victory in the 1964 Olympic 10,000 meter race, which was, of course, 60 years ago this year. To this date, he's the only American runner to have won the 10,000 meter gold medal. It's less well known that Billy was also a marathon runner who ran the Olympic marathon in 1964. We'll definitely be talking some about that. Billy, welcome to the podcast. It's a thrill to have you with us.
Well, I'm honored to be with you, and I'm humbled. I'm with two legends of running. You keep the sport, you keep us informed.
Say, Billy, it's so good to be with you again. And it's been a few years, as Amby said, 60 to be exact, since you won the 10,000 in 1964. For our listeners, give us a bit of a bio update, how old you are now, where you're living, family. What do you spend most of your time doing these days?
Excellent. I'm June 30th, I'll be 68 years old.
86. I was 68.
I'm glad we're doing some editing here. On June 30th, I'll be 86 years old.
3 wishes.
We live in Sacramento, California. We've been here since 1973. We've become Olympic junkies. We'll be going to Paris. It'll be our 14th Olympic Games, including 4 Winter Games. We're still active. Started the co-founded Running Strong for American Indian Youth, which we have a tremendous nonprofit organization doing great things on the reservations and put the players together for bread and water for Africa. So we indirectly are involved in some great charitable work in Africa with Kip Keano's children's home in Eldoret, Nairobi. I still do a lot of speaking engagements to sales and marketing groups, and I just came back from speaking to the Women's in Technology Conference, the empowerment of women, mainly very high-tech people in different areas, and that was in Kansas City 2 days ago. So we're active. We're traveling a lot and enjoying life.
Billy, you just mentioned your your nonprofit work with the Native American group, your foundation. And I think it's really interesting that most of the well-known American distance runners of the past half century, let's face it, we've been middle class or upper class, went to Eastern universities and had life pretty easy. That wasn't true of you on the reservation. Can you tell us just a little bit of what it was like growing up on a reservation?
Yes, in fact, I'll share with you things I've never shared with people, but my great-grandfather, B.B. Mills, in 1889, actually in 1868, over the next decade, was in Wyoming, Montana, and married a full-blooded Lakota woman, my great-grandmother. And when he died, he worked at the fort in Fort Laramie. When he died, they ran my grandmother off with her 5 children. She found her way to Crazy Horse's band, one of 3 bands that were still living free, and lived with him and his band, lived with Crazy Horse's band for approximately 4 years until the new treaty was signed. And when he came into Fort Robinson, Crazy Horse, with escorted full regalia with some of the military leaders, 300 warriors, men, women, and children in the slide train. Walking in with him was my grandpa, Ben Mills, my grandfather, 5.5 years of age. Well, B.B. Mills was asked to be the first Indian agent by Red Cloud. He was declined because he married a full-blooded Lakota woman, 5 Indian children, and it would be too hard to save the person by taking the Indianness out of them. So what I took from my experiences on the Pine Ridge Reservation growing up is I took my total being, half Lakota and half white, and I tried to represent the total being in a country that excluded half of me. And it was challenging. And once I won the gold medal at the Olympic Games, I was asked to give back. So what I decided to give back was we created the charity Running Strong for American Indian Youth. And I tried to give back an understanding of unity through diversity, using myself being half Lakota and half white, and promoting global unity through the dignity, character, beauty of global diversity, which to me is not only the theme of the Olympic Games, far more important, it's the future of humankind if we choose. So I have my Lakota past with me daily in my suits of the horizon of tomorrow.
So, Billy, let's go back to your earliest running days. I think you began running at the Haskell Institute in Lawrence, Kansas. And what drew you to running, and were you successful at it right off as a high schooler?
I was at Haskell. Haskell was one of the schools that came under the treaty rights to prepare the young Indian children for tomorrow. But those roads quickly became misleading because it was to strip us of our culture, of language, culture, tradition, spirituality. But Haskell was different. It was kind of like the Harvard of Indian schools. And I had lost my mom and then my dad before going to Haskell. And the coach, Tony Coffin, was like my second father. He set all of the young boys down and said, the 3 most important things in life is to get to know yourself, your total being. Of course, that then meant knowing the culture, and then faith in the Creator, and education, and family. So I found a mentor while I was there. I got involved in track, and my 3rd cross-country race I won was undefeated the rest of my high school career in cross-country, and came out of high school, I believe, ranked 4th in the nation in the mile. And we didn't run 2 miles back then, but I was told the top 20, 25 distance runners in the nation were running a 2 mile to maybe enhance their chances for a scholarship. So I ran a 2 mile in 9:08, which actually brought me the scholarships, and I chose the University of Kansas.
Billy, when you chose Kansas and went to Kansas, you were following the footsteps of great milers like Glenn Cunningham and Wes Santee. I'm just sort of curious. This was all before Jim Ryan's time. What kind of stories did you hear about Cunningham and Santee, and were you pressured to be a miler like they were?
Yeah, I was very intrigued. With Glenn Cunningham and Archie San Romani Sr. Wes was difficult to get to know. And Coach Easton would tell us stories to inspire us. And he asked me, "What are your dreams?" So I'm this young, innocent freshman, and I said, my big dream is to make the Olympic team. And as I started to say, I would love to have a medal from the Olympic Games, he broke in and said, don't dream too big. These dreams are for people like Wes Santee. So it was a difficult challenge, but the major challenge I had at the University of Kansas was my own health. In high school, I'd go low blood sugar. Didn't know it was low blood sugar, but my coach would give me honey before races. So I took my honey jar to our first cross-country race as a University of Kansas athlete. Coach Easton took my honey jar away, simply saying, "This is college, we do things differently." So I had to eat 4 to 4.5 hours before every race. Every race I ran in college was low blood sugar, but on occasion I'd break through and show promise. Then, right before the Olympic Games, as a young Marine, I was diagnosed as type 2 borderline diabetic and severe hypoglycemia. And that ultimately was diagnosed as insulinoma, which women usually get, very few men. And on your pancreas, there's a tumor that spews extra insulin, which takes you up and down, up and down, up and down. And that was my career, running with insulinoma, or what they started saying first was type 2 diabetics. When I turned 85, I told Pat, if I knew how to handle insulinoma now, instead of 1 world record, I possibly could have had 15. I could have matched Clark record for record. She said, "My God, Billy, you're 85 years old, just let it go."
So, Billy, before we get into the Olympics for you, leaving college back then, what life and running decisions did you have to make as you got out of Kansas back then?
What decisions did you have to make when you left Kansas?
I think the big decision I had to make was I still going to run? It was just too hard, not understanding what was wrong with me. One day I felt world class. The next day I was struggling to finish a race. Way down deep inside, I don't know what you would call it. My dad, before he passed away, told me to find your dream. It leads you down a path to a passion. You find your passion, develop the skills to equal the passion, bring them together, and magic is created. So way down deep, I felt on a given day, if I knew how to handle my body, not knowing the health issues, on a given day, I could run with anybody in the world. And on a given day, I could beat them. So it was shortly after meeting Pat, right before we got married. You go hypoglycemic, and a slow form of depression overcomes you. And I came so close to suicide. And I remember getting off the chair and writing down, "God has given me the ability. The rest is up to me. Believe, believe, believe." And I wrote down a dream to heal a broken soul. I put gold medal, 10,000-meter run, Tokyo, Japan. God has given me the ability. The rest is up to me. And then Pat and I told her what my dream was, and she became my incredible support system. So at that point, we pursued the Olympic gold medal.
Well, Billy, that's quite a story, and particularly battling the medical issues that you faced then, which people did not know about as we do today, and the depression. But I'm curious, and I've got a funny question for you, funny, serious. you were getting ready to go to the Olympics, or to get to the Olympics, you had to do well in the Olympic track trials before Tokyo. Only you did something really dumb. 6 weeks before the track trials, you ran the first marathon of your life, I believe. Why did you decide to run a marathon?
Well, I was actually wanting to make the team in the 5, the 10, and the marathon.
Oh, no.
And I thought I could win a gold in the 10. And they opened up the marathon to the winner of Yonkers, who was automatically on the team, Buddy Edelin, and second and third would be chosen from Culver City. I trained with Alex Breckenridge, and he was training. He was an Olympian in 1960 in the marathon. And I felt how I could handle him in these long runs. But then the next long run, I'd be crashing. So I thought, well, I'm going to try to make it in the marathon. I think I can make it in the marathon. So what was really, I had not met the Olympic qualifying for the 10,000 meters yet. And I think I ran to Culver City. When I made the team in Culver City, I received what I call some really nasty letters. When I made the team in the marathon, I received some really harsh letters for me to give up my spot to the runner who finished behind me because I was a flash in the pan. And then when I made the team in the marathon, when I made the team in the 10,000 meters, some of the letters said, if you run both the 10,000 meters and the marathon, you will not only be an embarrassment to America, you'd be a disgrace to the Olympic team. And I was going to give up my spot in the marathon, and that decided, no, I'm going to win a medal in the marathon. I think it was like 2 weeks later, we had to meet the qualifying time for the 10,000. I trained through that, made the qualifying time, and I think it converted to about a 28:50 10K, and Ron LaRue broke the American record. So I knew I could take a second off a lap. So I was just right in my mind where I was planning to go. And then I just started trying to focus also with the marathon to win a medal at the Olympic Games at the marathon. So I went really thinking I was gonna win 2 medals.
So as we come up to that Tokyo 10,000, Billy, clearly Ron Clarke, he was the world record holder. He was a heavy favorite. What made you think that you could even hang with Ron Clarke for 20 laps?
I ask myself that many times since the games, but I knew in my runs, I trained through the 10,000 meters with Joey Lindgren, and I was planning on running 28:20 at the Olympic trials. And when my last race in cross country at the University of Kansas, Bill Easton, who I grew to respect, and we became dear friends later, he had his 15-year record breaking in winning the Big 8 cross country, Big 7, Big 8 cross country. I was the captain. He told me how to run the race. I ran it exactly the way he told me to, encourage 5th, 6th place runners to catch Oklahoma State. Then I had to break away and win the race. So I did exactly what he said, won the race, but we finished second to Oklahoma State. My brother was with me. I could see the pride my brother had in me on his face. And Easton said, you were the worst cross-country captain I ever had. I broke his record of 15 victories, and I was crushed. My last race in college, NCAA championships, I was running with Pat Hussey, who was telling me about Ron Clarke. Pat would tell me how great Ron is doing, the training that they've been doing. So I was somewhat aware of Ron and then his training. And Pat Hussey and I were going to run together. I beat Pat probably 60% of the times. He beat me at least about 40% of the times. Easton found out we were planning a strategy, and then he kicked me off the team my senior year at the NCAA championships. So I didn't have breakfast. I didn't have lunch. Then he told me to go get my clothes on. I'm going to run. And I said, but I'm not ready. He said, you're still on scholarship. So I get dressed, and I'm running with Pat. And I remember Pat saying, how could you put up with that type of an attitude for 4 years? And Easton said, get up in front or get off the track. So my senior year in college, NCAA championships, Division I walked off the track and I went up to him and he said, "Why did you quit?" I said, "I didn't quit. You gave me two choices. I wanted to do it my way." And he said, "Why didn't you do it your way then?" And I'd learned a lesson and went back and told Pat, we were ready to get married, and I told her, "I've got one race in me. I've got one race in me that I can run with anybody in the world on a given day and win." And that race became the Olympic 10K. And Clarke came so close to breaking me several times, but I don't know, it was grit. I don't know how to describe it, but it was in me from the time my dad said, "Find your dream. It takes a dream to heal broken souls." And I wrote down my goal, Olympic gold medal, 10,000-meter run. And that was simply to heal a broken soul.
Well, you heal the broken soul, your own and perhaps others from your family and past. But that race was just so absolutely remarkable. I think that you broke your personal record for 5,000 meters halfway. And with one lap remaining in the race, there was a lot of jostling going on, and it was hard to tell who was leading and who was pushing whom. You've done it so many times, but could you take us through the last lap of that Olympic 10,000?
This one.
I can get emotional about that last lap.
So can I.
It was a gift. But I told Pat, and I have in my workout book, I was going to run 28:25, and I could run 28:25 any day of the week. Whether it rained, whether it was windy, I could run 28:25. I knew Clarke was the favorite. Muhammad Gammoudi, I knew he would be tough because he beat me at the World Championships a year earlier in Belgium, and he said, "All you need is more speed." I practiced speed endurance for a year. 4 days before the Olympic gold medal, my workout was 200 meters out of the blocks. And I had a German guy time me. I shot it across the track. What was my time? He goes, "Oh, not too fast. Poor start. Learn how to start. Maybe faster." He said 23:3. And I go, yes. And he said, "What event?" I said, "The marathon and the 10,000 meters." He said, very fast, very fast. So I just took 23 flat, doubled it, 46, added a second, 47, and felt any day of the week I was ready with a running start to run 48.5, 48.7 for 400 meters. So I've got to just hang with them. The gun goes off immediately. Clarke, after the first lap, he sets on world record pace. I tucked in with the top 5. At the 3 mile mark, I was within the fastest 3 mile I ever ran, estimating the 3 mile mark, not the 5,000. But I was well under. I'd run at 3:57 earlier. So I was still very close to my fastest PR for 5,000, but it was my 3 mile that I was trying to judge. And I took the lead at the 5,000 meter mark to slow the pace. I was hanging on. Clarke immediately shot past me, and then he slowed the pace. So I caught up with him one more time. 2 laps to go. Mamawolde, I believe it's Mamawolde, was faltering. So there's 3 of us left. And again, I'm struggling. So I take the lead to slow the pace. Clarke took the lead, sped it up, but then he slowed the pace. So I knew I was in the race to the final lap. And all I was counting on was my 200 meters out of the blocks with a German coach timed me. And we were running up, and it might have been Temu, an African runner that was running barefooted on the center track, wet. And I knew Clarke got boxed in by Cook at the Commonwealth Games the year before and got beat. So I moved on Clarke's shoulder. I'm going to box him in, and I'm going to start my kick. I got far enough ahead to cut in, but he accelerated to keep me from cutting in, and we bumped, and I'm pushed into the 3rd lane. I closed back on his shoulder, and Gammoudi struck. And I'm going low blood sugar. So I said, I'm going to let them get no more than 10 yards ahead of me. I will make, rather than going with them now, I might run out of gas. I'll try with 120 meters to go. 120 meters to go. They had to be, to me, it looked like 10 yards ahead of me. And it was now, lifting my knees, pumping my arms. And Patricia, my wife Pat, she was about 80 meters from the finish line, 14 rows up, 3 seats in from the aisle toward the finish line. And I knew where she was. I could actually look and see her very easily, but I would not if she showed any doubt. I was beaten. So we come off the curve, and it's one comment I seldom share, but was the most important comment, or the thought. I may never be this close again. I've got to do it now. And that's with all of the hypoglycemia, the highs and lows I went through in my career, and the passion that surfaced in from my body. I've got to do it now. And then that's where I see a runner, Clarke and Gamudi lapped. He's in front of me. I'm in the 4th lane, running wide on the curve. That runner moved into the 5th lane. I go by that runner, and I glance, and on his jersey, I saw an eagle. And my dad would say, as a little boy, you do these things, son. Someday you could have wings of an eagle. It was just like I was this child. I was this man, wings of an eagle, lifting my knees, pumping my arms, and I felt the tape break across my chest. And so many thoughts. It was like one thought I never share because it's always too emotional was, Dad, are you watching?
It is.
And then I answered myself, yeah, he's watching. And I stopped. An official said, who are you? And I said, oh, my God, do I have one more lap to go? He said, finished, new Olympic champion. I told him, I've got to find the German. I've got to find the German to thank him. That eagle helped me win. I went and found the person, was not a German athlete. There was no eagle. And it was, oh, my God. That was simply, it was just a perception that I needed at that time. And the only way I can justify that is the German warm-up had an eagle on it. And I saw that every day. I saw that, and it empowered me. And then the official came back and said, is there anything we can do for you? And I simply looked at him and said, I want my wife. Within moments, Pat said they're tapping her on the shoulder. New Olympic champion requests his wife. She came down and we hugged. We're going in for the press conference, and we hugged it, and then I started fighting back the tears, and I said, I know what it meant. And she said, what meant? Pat, I healed a broken soul. And from that point on, I came close to suicide one more time, but it was not the frightening challenge I faced in the past. I healed a broken soul. And she looked at me, and we hugged. Then it was, and in the process, Pat, I won an Olympic gold medal. I'm an Olympic champion. But that was so secondary. And never thought 60 years later, this year, I'm still the only person to win a gold medal in that event.
Billy, 1 week after all of that sheer emotion, what really turned out to be the race of the Olympics, I think, for most people, you ran the Olympic marathon. Tell us about that, your state of mind, and just that whole experience.
My Olympic marathon, I took no fluids in the Olympic marathon. I mixed 40 grams of Tang with 40 grams of powdered protein. Shook it up with water, turned that in to be my Olympic drink. I went by all the stops. I was told about 3 miles to go. The Marines were lined up and they were saying fourth. And I took that as the gentleman from England that got second. He had just caught me. We were running together for a while, and they were saying four. So I thought they were saying he and I must be 4th and 5th, or there's 4 ahead of us. I'm going to win a medal. And then, boom, a great cloud. I blacked out. I don't remember anything. I woke up about 600 meters from the finish, and it was, oh my God, I'm in the Olympic marathon. I've got to finish. After winning the gold in the 10, I finished, and I'm low blood sugar. I'm shaking. Bibi Bakila walked by, and I tried to congratulate him. He stopped, and through an interpreter, he said, Billy, congratulations on a magnificent 10,000-meter victory.
Yeah,
And all I could do in response was to grunt back to BB, thank you. But that was my Olympic experience. So I don't really know how to run an Olympic marathon. 1968, I told George I would take him through 21 miles, but I was averaging about 40 miles a week of running. And I thought I could make the team in the 5, but there's no way I could run a quality 10 or a marathon. So the only advice I could give George is, at altitude, it's got to be negative splits. It's got to be negative splits, George. And I helped him back till probably 20 miles or so. And I said, George, I can't go any further. I'm going to have to go after them now. And as he parted, he said, you better not have kept me back too long.
Billy, I'm going to fill in a few details that we missed en route. I want to point out that in your Olympic marathon trials race in Culver City, you ran 2:27. In the Olympics, after your 10,000 meter race, you ran 2:22. That was 14th place. Apparently, you don't remember a lot of it, but that was a pretty darn good race in Tokyo. And when you said George, you were talking about George Young in the 1968 Olympic marathon trials. And George won that race, thanks to your advice about negative splits, perhaps. But
George Young.
Here's
it makes this, the trials in Alamosa. Yeah, I'll make a comment.
Go ahead. You want to talk about Alamosa?
Okay. The Alamosa Marathon Olympic trials, George was going to run the marathon, and he wanted me to give him some advice. And the only advice I could give him was negative splits at altitude. I told him I'd take him through 21 miles, and if I felt good, I would stay. If I did not, I was going to drop, because I'd only been running about 40 miles a week. And George saw the field getting ahead of him. Then the field was out of sight, and I said, just hold back, George, hold back. And finally told George Young, I'm assuming probably 6 miles to go or so, and go after them. And I remember being not too far from the finish when you came by. And I made a comment to you, and then went to the finish to watch George. But I was very, very happy for George. George Young was the toughest distance runner I ever competed against.
I would agree with you there. George was just amazing, and he had such an astonishing range of distances that he was outstanding at. Billy, one thing that's always interesting to ask someone like yourself is, how did the Olympic gold medal change your life, and how did it not change your life?
I think the Olympic experience set the stage for my life career. What I took from the Olympic Games was not a gold medal. I took friendship. I took just love for my fellow man. When I was going to the Games, the elders on the reservation told me, you come from the heart of everything that is. Take our most powerful prayer with you. We are all related. So I'm flying into Tokyo. I look at I saw Mount Fuji, and it was so empowering. I thought, wow, Mount Fuji has to be the heart of everything that is to the Japanese. And I was a young officer in the United States Marine Corps. Then I read in the Village an article about how the Japanese adults, the leaders, wanted the children born the day of the first atomic bomb to the day of the opening ceremonies to see the world as one. And that just went to my soul. The people I met, and people I met from other games, that they become lifetime friends. So it helped me in this manner. We spent the rest of our life pursuing global unity through the dignity, character, beauty of global diversity, national and local. But in local diversity, we're trying to wash the footprints away with the winds of change of some of the truths that we need to bring our country to the height of the maturity of our democracy. So the games, in my final comment, in our culture, the Lakota culture, if you accomplish something that maybe inspired or helped other people, you are asked to give back. So we co-founded Running Strong for American Indian Youth. I put the pairs together for Bread and Water for Africa, but I have no involvement there. And Running Strong is under Christian Relief Services. And the charitable work, the good things we do worldwide, basically, is my giveaway, Lakota giveaway, giving back to the people that helped inspire me so I could help inspire others.
Billy, we can't do any better than to end on that note and your wonderful expression of one world, one global humanity, one togetherness. So we will end with that. And George and I would just like to say that we are so thankful to you for taking the time to tell us your story today and to help us all remember the things you lived through and the lessons that you gained through your running in your life. So thank you for joining us.
Thank both of you very much. I admire both of you guys.
Thank you, Billy. Amby, that was quite an emotional conversation with Billy Mills. His story is so deep and multi-layered that it always reaches a high point or two. What impressed you the most?
I was actually surprised, George, by what hit me the hardest. It was Billy's several mentions of his lifelong hypoglycemia or prediabetes, and what a struggle it was for him. Of course, today we know that diabetes is a particular challenge for many Native Americans, but that wasn't common knowledge during his competitive years 60 years ago, and much less was known about how to treat it. Billy didn't fully understand why he had some bad races or even bad moments on some of his good days, like the Tokyo Olympic 10,000. Distance running is a roller coaster in any event, it seems to me. But for someone who's got glucose issues, it's particularly difficult and trying. Of course, I also appreciated how he felt that his Olympic gold medal was a gift, and its main meaning was he had to pay it forward through his speaking and nonprofit and community work that he has done all his life. What did you think about Billy?
Well, Amby, I just love it that he's going to Paris this summer, the 14th Olympics for him, and he'll be going with family members. And it's overall, I would just simply say, I don't know of a more articulate and inspiring figure in the world of track and field, honestly, than Billy Mills.
We're just so lucky to have him as one of our community. And that's it for this week's episode of Running State of the Sport. We hope you enjoyed joining us as much as we enjoyed sharing the time with you. We'll be back again soon with another episode. Until then, please tell your friends about Running State of the Sport. We'd also appreciate a review at your favorite podcast host, like Apple Podcasts or Spotify Podcasts. In signing off, here's our hope for the state of your own personal running. Chin up, clear eyes, full heart, keep moving, onward.